Sarah Jensen always knew she was different. It wasn't just the strange dreams of distant worlds that haunted her nights, or the way her skin seemed to shimmer ever so slightly under the full moon. It was something deeper, something written in her very DNA, a truth her mother had taken to her grave 15 years ago. Growing up in a small Colorado town, Sarah learned early to hide the things that made her unique. The way she could sense others' emotions before they spoke them. The fact that she never got sick, not even a common cold. The mysterious patterns that appeared on her skin when she experienced intense emotions, patterns she carefully concealed beneath long sleeves and high collars. Her mother, Eleanor, had told her the story only once, on Sarah's 20th birthday. How on a warm summer night in 1990, she had met a mysterious man named Azarian at a local observatory where she worked as an assistant researcher. He was tall, otherworldly beautiful, with eyes that seemed to hold the depths of space within them. Their romance had been brief but intense, 3 months of passion and wonder, during which Eleanor discovered that Azarian was more than just a visiting scientist. He was a celestial, an advanced being from a distant star system, sent to study humanity. He never meant to fall in love, Eleanor had told Sarah, her voice trembling with old emotions. And he certainly never meant to create you. When he discovered I was pregnant, he was terrified. Such a union was forbidden by his people. He left before you were born, not out of cruelty, but to protect us both. Now, at 35, Sarah had built a careful life for herself. She worked as a successful architectural designer, channeling her alien heritage into creating spaces that seemed to defy conventional geometry. She had married young to David Martinez, a kind man who accepted her peculiarities without questioning them too deeply. When he died in a car accident 3 years into their marriage, she had mourned him deeply but also felt a strange relief. Maintaining the facade of normalcy had been exhausting. What she hadn't counted on was meeting Michael. Michael was David's son from his first marriage, a boy she had helped raise from the age of 12. Now 25, he had grown into a remarkable man, brilliant, intuitive, and possessed of a curiosity about the universe that reminded her achingly of what little she knew of her real father. It started innocently enough. After David's death, Michael had stayed close, becoming not just a stepson but a friend. They shared long conversations about quantum physics, the nature of consciousness, and the possibility of life on other worlds. Sarah found herself drawn to the way his mind worked, how he could follow her most abstract thoughts to their logical conclusions. But lately, something had changed. The air between them had become charged with an electricity that had nothing to do with her alien heritage. She caught herself watching the way he moved, the elegant precision of his hands as he explained complex theoretical concepts. She noticed how his eyes lingered on her when he thought she wasn't looking, particularly when the light hit her skin just right and that otherworldly shimmer became visible. It was wrong, she told herself. Not just because of their former relationship as stepmother and stepson, but because of what she was. The secret of her true nature weighed heavily on her, growing heavier with each passing day. She knew she should distance herself, should make up excuses to see him less often. Instead, she found herself inviting him over more frequently, engaging in increasingly intimate conversations that stretched late into the night. She noticed how he would sit progressively closer to her on the couch as they talked about the mysteries of the universe, his knee occasionally brushing against hers in a way that sent shivers through her hybrid nervous system. One night, as they sat on her balcony watching a meteor shower, Michael turned to her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "There's something different about you, Sarah," he said softly. "Something I always sensed but could never quite put my finger on. Will you ever tell me what it is?" Sarah stared up at the falling stars, her heart pounding. The patterns beneath her skin began to glow faintly, visible through the thin fabric of her blouse. She could feel Michael's eyes on her, filled with wonder rather than fear. In that moment, she knew she was standing on the edge of a precipice. The next words out of her mouth would either maintain the careful walls she had built around her truth or shatter them completely. And as another meteor streaked across the sky, she made her choice. "Michael," she whispered, "there's something I need to show you." Sarah's hands trembled as she led Michael into her home studio, a room she had never shown anyone before. The walls were covered with paintings she had created during her sleepless nights, swirling nebulae and impossible geometric patterns that seemed to shift and move in the dim light. But it wasn't the artwork she wanted to show him. "What I am about to tell you," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "will change everything between us." "Are you sure you want to know?" Michael stepped closer, his presence both comforting and dangerous. "I spent years trying to understand you, Sarah. Nothing you could say would make me turn away." She took a deep breath and slowly rolled up her sleeve. In the darkness of the studio, the bioluminescent patterns beneath her skin were clearly visible now, pulsing with a soft blue light that matched her quickening heartbeat. Michael's eyes widened, but he didn't step back. Instead, he reached out, his fingers hovering just above her glowing skin. "May I?" he asked. Sarah nodded, unable to speak. When his fingers made contact with her arm, a surge of energy passed between them. The patterns on her skin flared brighter, and suddenly Michael gasped, stumbling backward. I can feel what you're feeling," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "How is this possible?" Over the next few hours, Sarah told him everything, about Azarian, about her inherited abilities, about the constant fear of discovery that had shaped her entire life. She demonstrated how she could manipulate energy fields, creating small dancing lights between her palms. She showed him how she could read the emotional imprints left on objects, how she could communicate with plants and animals on a level humans couldn't comprehend. Michael absorbed it all with an intensity that both thrilled and frightened her. He asked questions she had never dared to ask herself, made connections she had never considered. As the night wore on, she found herself sharing things she had never told another soul: her loneliness, her fear of her own powers, her desperate desire to understand her father's people. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Michael finally asked as dawn began to break outside the studio windows. Sarah turned away, her patterns dimming. "Because I was afraid, not just of how you would react, but of what I was beginning to feel for you." "It's wrong, Michael. I was married to your father. I helped raise you. I am not a child anymore, Sarah," he said, his voice firm. "And what I feel for you has nothing to do with our past relationship. I think I've been falling in love with you for years. I just didn't know how to tell you." The words hung in the air between them, electric with possibility. Sarah could feel his emotions radiating toward her: desire, fear, hope, all tangled together in a complex web that matched her own confused feelings. "We can she whispered, even as her body betrayed her, the patterns on her skin brightening in response to his proximity. "Why not?" Michael moved closer, his hand finding hers in the semi-darkness. "Because of what others might think. Because of what you are. Sarah, I've never felt more connected to anyone in my life. And now I understand why." She looked up at him, seeing the reflection of her own glow in his eyes. "My father's people have abilities I don't fully understand. This connection between us, it could be dangerous. I could hurt you without meaning to. Or it could be exactly what both of us have been searching for," he countered. "You're not the only one who felt different, Sarah. I've always known there was something more out there, something beyond ordinary human experience. Finding out about you, it's like finally discovering the missing piece of a puzzle I've been trying to solve my whole life." As if to prove his point, he reached out and traced one of the glowing patterns on her arm. This time, instead of pulling away, Sarah allowed herself to feel the full force of their connection. The sensation was overwhelming, like touching a live wire, but instead of pain, there was only pure, radiant energy flowing between them. The patterns on her skin began to shift and change, forming new configurations she had never seen before. In that moment, she realized that her heritage wasn't just about being different, it was about possibility. About connection. About finding someone who could truly understand both her human heart and her alien soul. But as Michael leaned in, his intention clear in both his emotions and his body language, Sarah placed a gentle hand on his chest, stopping him. "Wait," she said softly. "If we're going to do this, if we're really going to explore whatever this is between us, we need to be careful. There's so much I still don't understand about what I am, about what I am capable of." Michael nodded, but his eyes never left hers. "Then we'll figure it out together. No more secrets, no more hiding. Just truth, whatever that turns out to be." As the first rays of sunlight began to filter through the studio windows, Sarah felt something shift inside her, a wall crumbling, a door opening to possibilities she had never allowed herself to imagine. But with that hope came a shadow of foreboding, a whisper of warning in her alien blood that suggested their journey was only beginning, and that the price of their connection might be higher than either of them could imagine. The weeks following Sarah's revelation transformed both their lives in ways neither had anticipated. Their connection grew stronger with each passing day, bringing both wonder and complications they hadn't foreseen. The first challenge came when Sarah discovered that her emotional state now affected Michael physically. During a particularly stressful day at work, her anxiety manifested as a severe migraine in Michael, even though he was miles away. When she was happy, he felt euphoric. When she was sad, a deep melancholy would settle over him like a heavy blanket. Their connection had become a double-edged sword, beautiful but potentially dangerous. "We need to understand what's happening," Michael said one evening as they sat in her studio, surrounded by her increasingly strange artwork. The paintings had begun to move more noticeably now, shifting and swirling with their combined energy. "There must be some scientific explanation for this bond between us." Sarah traced the glowing patterns on her arm, which had started forming new, more complex configurations whenever Michael was near. "My mother once mentioned that my father's people were known for forming deep psychic bonds with their chosen mates. But she didn't know much more than that." Azarian never had the chance to explain everything to her. Their research began in earnest. Michael, with his background in theoretical physics, approached their connection from a scientific angle, measuring energy fluctuations and documenting every new development. Sarah found herself remembering more of her strange dreams, which now seemed less like dreams and more like genetic memories passed down from her father's people. One night, as they lay side by side on the observatory roof, watching the stars, Sarah felt something new stirring within her. The patterns on her skin began to pulse with an intensity she never experienced before, and suddenly, she could see through Michael's eyes. Not just feel his emotions, but actually experience his thoughts and memories. "Sarah?" Michael's voice was filled with awe. Are you in my mind? You can feel it too?" She whispered, overwhelmed by the intimacy of their shared consciousness. "It's like I am seeing myself through your eyes. And I can see. Oh my God, Sarah, is this what the world looks like to you?" Through their merged perception, she could feel his amazement as he experienced her alien senses for the first time, the way she could see energy fields, the subtle vibrations of the universe that humans couldn't perceive, the complex layers of reality that had always been invisible to him. But with this deeper connection came darker revelations. Sarah began experiencing fragments of memories that weren't her own. Memories of vast cities beneath alien suns, of a civilization far beyond human understanding, and of laws broken and prices to be paid. She realized these must be memories from her father, encoded somehow in her hybrid DNA. One memory in particular kept surfacing: a trial, a sentence passed, and a warning about the consequences of mixing celestial and human bloodlines. The images were fragmented and unclear, but the sense of danger was palpable. "Something's wrong," Sarah said one morning, after waking from another vivid dream. I think my father didn't just leave to protect us from his people. I think he was running from something specific. Something he knew might happen if he stayed." Michael sat up in bed beside her, his concern flowing through their bond. "What do you mean? These memories I am accessing. They're showing me more about the Celestials' laws regarding human hybrid children. It wasn't just forbidden, it was dangerous. Something about genetic instability after the hybrid reaches full maturity." "But you read 35, Michael pointed out. "Wouldn't any instability have shown up by now?" Sarah stood and walked to the window, watching as the patterns on her skin formed new, almost fractal-like designs. "I don't think it's about physical maturity. I think it's about awakening. About fully embracing who and what I am. And Michael," she turned to face him, her eyes glowing slightly in the dim light. "I think our connection is accelerating the process." The implications hung heavy in the air between them. Their love, their deepening bond, might be the very thing that could destroy them both. But as Michael crossed the room and took her in his arms, Sarah knew there was no going back. The connection between them had become as essential as breathing. "Whatever's coming," Michael whispered against her hair, "we'll face it together. There has to be a way to stabilize the changes happening to you." But even as he spoke the words, Sarah felt another surge of foreign memory. Her father standing before a council of beings made of light, pleading for understanding. The human genetic structure cannot contain our full power, one of the beings had said. To awaken it fully would be to risk not just the hybrid's life, but the very fabric of reality around them. Sarah clutched Michael tighter, her patterns flaring with fear and love in equal measure. She knew they were approaching a point of no return, a moment when she would have to choose between suppressing her awakening powers or risking everything, including the man she loved, to discover her true potential. And somewhere, in the vast reaches of space, she sensed something stirring. Whether it was her father's people finally taking notice of her awakening, or something else entirely, she couldn't be sure. But one thing was certain, their time of quiet discovery was coming to an end. The first sign that they were no longer alone came on a quiet Sunday evening. Sarah and Michael were in the studio, attempting to document the increasingly complex patterns appearing on her skin, when every electronic device in the house suddenly failed. The air grew heavy with static electricity, and Sarah felt a presence she had never experienced before, ancient, powerful, and undeniably alien. "They here," she whispered, her patterns blazing with an intensity that filled the room with ethereal light. "The Celestials, my father's people." Michael moved protectively closer, their bond humming with shared anxiety and determination. Through his eyes, she could see herself glowing like a newborn star, the patterns on her skin forming impossible geometries that seemed to bend the space around her. The air in the center of the room began to ripple, and a figure materialized, tall, luminous, with features that seemed to shift between human and something wholly other. Sarah's heart stopped as she recognized him from her genetic memories. "Father," she breathed. Azarian looked exactly as he had in Eleanor's old photographs, yet somehow more. His human appearance seemed to be a courtesy, a thin veil over his true form. His eyes, when they met Sarah's, held entire galaxies. "Sarah," he said, his voice resonating on multiple frequencies. "I had hoped to reach you before the awakening progressed this far." His gaze shifted to Michael, and his expression grew troubled. "They formed a bond. This complicates things. Why did you leave us?" Sarah demanded, years of abandonment and questions burning in her throat. "Why didn't you warn us about what would happen?" "Because I hoped it wouldn't, Azarian replied, genuine pain in his voice. Most hybrids never achieve full awakening. They live their lives with enhanced abilities, yes, but their celestial DNA remains largely dormant. But you, he gestured to her glowing form. They not only awakened, they formed a soul bond with a human. The combination is unprecedented. Through their connection, Sarah felt Michael's scientific mind racing, analyzing every word. "The energy readings they've been getting," Michael said, "they increasing exponentially. It's not just her abilities growing stronger, is it? There's something else happening." Azarian nodded gravely. "The human genome was never meant to contain celestial power. Those who came before me believed any attempt at hybridization would result in spontaneous molecular breakdown during adolescence. I modified your genetic structure in the womb, Sarah. Found a way to stabilize the hybrid DNA. But even I couldn't predict the effect of a soul bond." Sarah looked down at her hands, watching as the patterns seemed to sink deeper into her flesh, no longer just beneath the skin but penetrating to her very atoms. "I can feel it," she said. "The power building. Sometimes it feels like I am about to burst out of my own skin." "The bond is acting as a catalyst," Azarian explained. "Human emotion, particularly love, resonates with celestial energy in unexpected ways. Your connection to Michael is accelerating your transformation. Soon, your human form won't be able to contain it. Then help her." Michael stepped forward, his voice fierce. Her father. "You must know some way to stabilize her." "There are options," Azarian said carefully. "The Celestial Council has sent me to present them to you, Sarah. The first is separation. If we sever your bond with Michael immediately, we might be able to slow the awakening enough to." "No," Sarah and Michael spoke in unison, their bond flaring with shared determination. "The second option," Azarian continued, "would be to suppress your celestial DNA completely. You would lose your abilities, your connection to our people, but you would survive. You would be human." Sarah felt Michael's supportive presence in her mind, letting her know that whatever she chose, he would stand by her. But there was something her father wasn't saying, something she could sense in the way he held himself. And the third option? She asked. Azarian's form shimmed slightly, his control over his human appearance slipping. The third option is to complete the transformation. To become what you were truly meant to be, neither human nor celestial, but something entirely new. But Sarah, his voice grew urgent, no hybrid has ever survived such a transformation. And even if you did, you would have to leave Earth. Your power would be too great, too dangerous to contain on this planet. And Michael? Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. The bond would have to be broken. No human could survive that level of connection to a fully awakened hybrid. The energy transfer alone would destroy him. The room fell silent save for the humming of power that seemed to emanate from Sarah's very being. Through their bond, she could feel Michael's fear, not for himself, but for her. She could also feel his love, steady and unwavering, despite everything they just learned. As she stood there, caught between her human heart and her celestial heritage, Sarah felt the power within her surge again, stronger than ever. The patterns on her skin began to move of their own accord, spreading out into the air around her like wings of light. In that moment, she realized they had run out of time. The choice would have to be made now. But as she opened her mouth to speak, a new sensation ripped through her. A feeling of reality itself beginning to bend and tear around her transforming body. The last thing she saw was Michael reaching for her, his love shining in his eyes, before the world dissolved into pure light. In the moment of Sarah's transformation, time seemed to stop. The world around her fractured into countless realities, each one showing a different possible outcome of her choice. In one, she saw herself fully human, living a normal life with Michael but forever yearning for the stars. In another, she witnessed her ascension to a celestial being, watching from afar as Michael grew old without her. In yet another, she saw only darkness, the price of failing to choose in time. But there was something else, something hidden in the spaces between these possibilities. Through her connection with Michael, she could feel him reaching for her, not just physically but with his entire being. Their bond, instead of breaking under the strain of her transformation, was somehow growing stronger. This isn't possible. She heard Azarian's voice, distant and distorted. The human should have been destroyed by the energy release. But Michael wasn't being destroyed. Instead, the patterns that had marked Sarah's skin were now appearing on his as well, creating a luminous web that connected them both. Through their deepened bond, Sarah could sense something extraordinary. Michael's consciousness was adapting, evolving to match her transformation. The realization hit her with the force of a supernova. The Celestials had been wrong. Their laws against human hybrid relationships weren't just about genetic compatibility. They were about preventing exactly this kind of evolutionary leap. Humans weren't merely capable of containing celestial energy. Under the right circumstances, they could evolve to channel it. With this understanding came clarity. Sarah reached out with both her physical and ethereal form, embracing Michael fully. The power that had threatened to tear her apart now flowed between them in a perfect circuit, neither fully human nor fully celestial, but something entirely new. Stop. Azarian's voice cut through their shared consciousness. The Council's predictions. If this continues, the changes will spread. Humanity itself could be altered. Sarah turned to face her father, her form now a shifting matrix of light and energy, still holding Michael's similarly transformed hand. When she spoke, her voice resonated with newfound power and purpose. Perhaps that's exactly what's supposed to happen, she said. You told me no hybrid has ever survived the transformation, but you never questioned why they tried alone. The Celestials have spent millennia observing humanity, but they never understood their greatest strength, the capacity to form bonds that transcend physical limitations. Through their connection, Michael added his own thoughts, his consciousness now able to communicate on multiple levels simultaneously. Your people chose isolation in their pursuit of power, he said. But true evolution comes from connection, from the blending of different strengths. The room around them had become a swirling vortex of energy, reality itself responding to their transformed state. Sarah could feel other presences now, the Celestial Council watching from their dimension, their surprise and confusion palpable. But she could also sense something else. Other hybrids around the world, their dormant powers resonating with the new possibilities she and Michael had discovered. Azarian stood witnessing their transformation, his expression shifting from concern to wonder. The council will not accept this, he warned, but there was a note of hope in his voice. They don't have to, Sarah replied. This isn't about replacing one form of existence with another. It's about building bridges between worlds. She turned to Michael, their shared consciousness exploring the vast new reality opening before them. We can show them another way. The patterns that had once been confined to their skin now expanded outward, creating a cellular network of light that connected them to each other and to the world around them. Through this network, they could feel the pulse of the Earth itself, the billions of human lives going about their daily existence, and the infinite potential that lay dormant in the connection between terrestrial and celestial. Stay with me? Sarah asked Michael, though the question was merely a formality. Their bond had transcended choice. They were now part of each other in ways that defied conventional understanding. Always, he replied, his love for her resonating through every strand of their shared being. Together, they stepped forward into their new reality, neither fully human nor celestial, but perfect in their hybrid state. The transformation that had threatened to destroy them had instead become a gateway to something greater, a love that literally transcended species, a connection that bridged worlds, and a future that neither of their kinds had imagined possible. Azarian watched as his daughter and her soulmate began their journey as the first of a new kind of being. The Celestial Council would have to adapt to this new reality, just as humanity would gradually awaken to the greater universe around them. Change was coming, not through invasion or force, but through love and connection. As Sarah and Michael's transformed consciousness expanded into the universe, they carried with them the truth they had discovered, that the greatest power in existence wasn't in genetic superiority or technological advancement, but in the ability to love beyond boundaries, to connect across differences, and to evolve together into something greater than the sum of their parts. Their story would become legend among both humans and celestials, not just a tale of forbidden love, but a testament to the power of connection to transcend every barrier, even those written into the very code of the universe itself. The patterns that had once marked them as different now spread through reality like a new constellation, a beacon for others who would follow their path. Sarah and Michael had become living proof that love, in its purest form, could not only survive the impossible, it could transform it into something beautiful. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space and consciousness, two souls danced among the stars, their light outshining every boundary that had ever tried to keep them apart.